Well, welcome back. Joining us in the studio today, we're delighted to have a Maryland delegate, Michael Malone, with us in the studio. Mr. Malone, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Happy that session's over.
Oh, I bet you are very happy. And I want to give folks a brief, if they're not sure what delegate you represent. Tell us about your district.
I'm the delegate for District 33, one of three. District 33 covers Severna Park, Crofton, the Broadneck Peninsula, Severn, Millersville. So it's actually one of the largest districts, both by size and by population.
Oh, yeah. Any idea about the numbers?
I think there's about 127,000 folks in the district.
Okay, yes. All right. And are you excited about the elected school bill?
Very much.
School board bill.
I went to public schools here in Anne Arundel County.
What's your high school? Shout out.
Arundel Wildcats.
Wildcats. Very good.
Which I can't leave out Odenton, which is also in the district, in Garebros.
Yeah, that's true. Tell us more about the bill.
The bill, there were some sort of competing bills, but the bill that finally passed provides for a fully elected school board. There will be 7 members who are elected from the 7 councilmatic districts of Anne Arundel County, which I think is important. A year ago, I argued against the current makeup because one of the things that it could have had happen is you could have everyone from North County, everyone from South County, everyone from Annapolis, and by being the members being elected from the councilmatic districts, you're going to have geographic diversity, which I think is important because we obviously have, our schools and our high schools and from the whole county. I think that's very important. And then there's going to be an 8th member who will be the student member who will continue to be elected in the same process that has existed for, I think, about 20 years.
That's such an exciting honor when you think about a student that will actually be elected to be on the board. Tell us about some of the legislation that you were working on before it closed.
I was pleased. I had 3 bills where I was the primary sponsor. One bill which I thought was important was a bill on crime. Currently, home invasion, if somebody would break into your home with the intent of committing basically mayhem and other terrible acts, that wasn't listed as a crime of violence. And why it's important for home invasion to be listed as a crime of violence is it means there's some, potential enhanced sentences that can come about from a crime of violence. And it also means once someone is sentenced from committing a crime of violence, that they're not going to be entitled to as much good time. So it's going to make it less likely you hear that, the story of a judge, given a 20-year sentence and somebody's out in, let's say, 5 years, which I just thought was very important.
It's very surprising it wasn't treated with more.
What happened is they separated, basically B&E into 2 different types of breaking and entering. One would be sort of the cat burglar that just goes into a home to steal a TV, and the other one was the home of violence. And when they did that, they didn't put the home invasion, I said home of violence, but the home invasion, they didn't put it as a crime of violence. And last year I was involved on a commission, and it came up that it wasn't included, and somebody said, hey, that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And what I often do in a session is I'll jot down a note of something that should be addressed in the future, and I drop down a note and remembered to have a bill drafted on it. So the bill was drafted and was fortunate that it passed both the House and the Senate.
Great.
And I also worked on 2 other bills. One bill I co-sponsored with Senator Riley. Currently, if you die without a will, your spouse receives a certain percentage, a certain fixed number, and then a certain percentage of the estate. And the number is only $15,000, is the first hard number that is in place. And I think that was put in place like in 1994.
Times have changed.
Correct. A little bit of inflation since then.
Right.
And in fact, I even made a chart and talked about, here was the price of milk, here's what our average cost of a house was. The original bill proposed for it to go to from 15,000 to 100,000 and then a percentage. The Senate modified it and changed it from the 100 to a 40, but at least that's, almost tripling the number, which actually sort of matches inflation. So I was pleased that that got done. And then the last bill, I was listed, myself and Delegate Angel, I do domestic law as my other job.
Oh.
And one thing that comes about sometimes when folks get divorced, sometimes the spouse wants to go back to a former name.
Yeah.
And when you have a divorce, you have to make that decision right then and there. And for some folks, that's a very tough decision. It means that they might be switching their name that doesn't match with their kids. So what the bill as passed provides is it now gives the spouse 18 months from even after the divorce to make that decision. So if you have a child that's maybe close to graduating from high school, you'd like to keep the same name, we wanted it to be a longer time period, but one thing I've learned is not everyone always agrees. Sometimes there's amendments.
It's a delicate time.
I agree. So, and plus sometimes it's just a tough call for somebody. And this gives them the chance that even after the divorce, they have 18 months to think about it and coming back. I had some other bills, a couple bills that I got through the House, but I didn't get through the Senate. So I'll try again next year.
Yeah, try again. That's all right. Well, the governor's budget passed 2 weeks early. Did you vote for it?
I voted for his operating budget, and I think it was a great budget. It had very modest increase, 1.5% increase over the previous budget. It set historic levels of funding for K through 12 education, which, as I mentioned, I'm a product of public schools. I have 4 kids who've gone through the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. So
no school is better than Anne Arundel County.
That's correct. And Maryland's had excellent schools throughout their history, or at least in recent history, and the governor's keeping up with that. He also provided more than $50 million for the Chesapeake Bay. And he also was able, within his budget, to enable colleges to stay reasonable here in Maryland, capping increases for Maryland's colleges at 2%.
That's all positive things for Marylanders.
I think it was.
All of those, so that's excellent. What bills from this session do you think will have the most impact on your constituents?
Well, certainly the school board bill.
Yes,
I think
a lot will be happy.
That's going to be huge.
About that.
Some other bills, which I think also are very important, is we continue to have our opioid crisis. And there's some bills to focus on drug courts and continue to have help folks to make sure that they get through this so they don't harm themselves and, most importantly, harm others, harm their children and families. Often when I speak about the opioid epidemic, one of the things that I'll talk about is how it affects not just the person who's addicted, but it affects children, it affects other family members. Just in the past year and a half, I had 2 cases where I represented relatively young men who almost overnight became single fathers because somebody who was a homemaker unfortunately became addicted, and when you're addicted, you can't properly parent. And one was a young military man who had 3 kids, I think all under the age of 5, and fortunately he stepped up, but suddenly he had no choice. Because he had 3 young children, 3 young boys that he became a single father to because the mom had become addicted and was no longer functional. So we got to find a way to end that.
Yeah, you're very, very accurate with that. And it sounds like you hit a lot of major points that a lot of Marylanders are actually very concerned with right now. Chesapeake Bay, school, heroin. So we appreciate all the hard work on your past session.
Thank you.
Best of luck with your next one. Any fun weekend plans?
Well, we usually do a few egg hunts. We often go up to Bunny Bonanza up in the city at the Baltimore Zoo.
Oh, that's
maybe see those new grizzly bears,
Yep.
those cubs that have just come in, and I think have just gotten their names. And I think there's a baby giraffe up there.
Aww.
And then we'll be getting together with some family for Easter Sunday and Easter
Yes.
service.
What a great spring weekend.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please come back. We love to have you for updates. And happy Easter to you and your family.
And to you.
Thank
Hope you
so
have a great
much.
weekend.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll be right back with more Weekend Review right after this. Don't go anywhere.